and look for John Verney in the waiting room.
Okay.
We have somebody just called a Zoom user, no name there.
Yeah, it's very confusing sometimes to tell who's who.
Well, if people want to raise their hand and speak up, we have to know who they are and what.
So we are recording now, and oh, you said John.
No,
John
he's not
in
there.
the waiting room. Is he the
No,
Zoom
he's not.
user?
No, I just looked. He's not there.
Oh, okay.
All right, but we'll open the meeting. Of course, it's after 7 o'clock, and we're on. We're good. We're on.
We're live streaming.
Okay. Good evening, everyone. Call the meeting to order. This is the Village of Mamaroneck Board. It's January 27th, 2021. We have a very light agenda tonight, which we will take care of. The first item on the agenda is approval of minutes from the September 23rd, 2020 meeting. A set of minutes was sent to everyone. Just so you know, I pulled the ones that were posted on the website, had some minor typos in them, which were corrected, and that's why you got a revised copy sent to you this week, everyone on the board. And there was just some minor things that didn't warrant discussion. So if everyone's reviewed the minutes and if we're ready to vote on them, I need a motion to accept the minutes, or if anybody has any comments before that. We don't follow Robert's Rules of Order here. We can have comments before we open the motion.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion at all? Okay, this is to approve the minutes. Richard,
Yes.
Cindy,
Yes.
Ellen?
I wasn't at that meeting or
Oh,
seen
okay,
it, so
so-
I'm gonna hold off.
You're gonna abstain? Okay,
I'm gonna abstain.
and let's show Mr. Verney as absent for the vote. Okay, that was simple enough. Okay, the only other item on the agenda is a site plan review at 1040 Nautilus Lane. This was an application that came to us 2 weeks ago. It's a single family home that's looking to put on an addition on the second floor bedroom level and an addition over the existing living room kitchen level, and converting a screen deck to interior space. When we met 2 weeks ago, the open issues were a final review of the landscaping plan by our landscape architect, and we received her report. And the engineering report was pending, and we received Mr. Garcia's report. The applicant responded to that report rather quickly, and Mr. Garcia sent us a second report after reviewing the information that the applicant sent in to us. And I guess that's where we are right now at the final stage. The application was approved by BAR on December 1st. So we're at the end of this process. Does anybody have any questions for either Mr. Garcia, Ms. Oakley, or the applicant? We can promote them to participants if we need to.
I have a question for Mr. Garcia. I'd be interested, originally you had raised some concerns with the original SWIP. And I was wondering if you could kind of take us through how those concerns were answered, because I see the revised SWIP, I see the original SWIP. Can you kind of explain how those concerns were answered?
Yeah, so if you went through my memo, one of my main concerns was just the separation distance between the proposed the bottom of practice that the applicant's engineer of record was proposing. After reviewing it both with the applicant's engineer and other engineers in my office, it was determined that that the way it was designed, or the intent design, was it met the stormwater manual's requirement for the 3-foot separation. There was also a concern about the TC that was used, which was, he did send me a revised, after speaking to him yesterday, he did revise his SWIT report, which recorded the correct TC value that was supposed to be used. And then also on his in his hydraulic calculations or hydrologic calculations, he did revise his elevations to just to make sure that everything worked fine with what he was proposing. So after the other comments that were in my report from last week, were also, all those comments were satisfied. So there was nothing major that caused major concerns in terms of an engineer aspect for the project.
Okay, so it was basically revised a bit for the to have that 3 feet distance that you were initially concerned about?
Yeah, and you know, after speaking with other engineers in my office, there was the intent of the design and how it was calculated, everything seemed fine in our part, and it was quickly we were able to approve it.
And good evening, Michael Stein with Hudson Engineering. And just to clarify, the original design, we didn't need to change anything based upon the elevations. Basically, below the dry well system or Coltech system, we had a foot of crushed stone. But in our design calculations, we weren't accounting for that stone being there. We're just looking at it as basically a bedding for the Coltech system.
Yeah.
I see.
I just had a question about the Cultex. Because I don't fully understand. I know there needs to be at least a 3-foot separation, but is that between the bottom of the Cultech or the top of the, can somebody just explain to me
Well,
what the separation means?
Sure, it depends. I mean, what you need to provide is 3-foot separation between the bottom of the practice and either groundwater or ledge rock. In this case, we are looking at the bottom of the Coltech itself, not the bottom of the gravel, because our calculations don't account for that gravel being there. So that gravel could be soil, could be gravel. So you need to keep the separation from the bottom of where you're taking credit for to that level.
Okay, and so you've done, I see the percolation testing and all that's cleared up. What about, is there a requirement for infiltration testing?
Yes, that's percolation testing.
Yeah, so the percolation test is considered an infiltration test. It's just in the industry it's used interchangeably, or that's the common nomenclature for that type of test is a percolation test.
A percolation test?
Yes.
Are there other types of infiltration tests?
No, I think the stormwater manual calls for that type of test, and in their SWIP report, you know, Hudson Engineering did lay out how the test was done, and it did meet the stormwater manual's requirements for that type of infiltration test.
Okay, I just thought they were 2 different things.
No.
No, they're not.
Okay.
Anyone else have any questions for anyone on the panel?
So I know we had we had a comment, a public comment that we just got today. I don't know if there's been a chance to review those questions or comments basically on the engineering. Have you been able to see the public comment, Mr. Garcia, or those questions?
Yes, I have. I think Amber had forwarded to me a couple hours prior to the meeting. I think one was relating to the percolation test. Another one was I want to say the test pit that was done. I think the only in terms of what they did, I think is fine. From practice, from other projects I've worked on, I think the only question is probably the 24-hour checking the water level 24 hours later, which I don't think was done on this project, but I have no major concerns in terms of, the water level changing or, rising to cause any concerns with this system.
And the science supports that.
Yes.
Science supports that, and it's documented in the SWIP.
Right. We, if our consulting engineer has approved the project and things make sense to all of us, we tend to go with our consulting engineer because he's an engineer. So we got, other than the one condition for as-built, for the stormwater survey as-built, after the project is built, there would be no other conditions on this application. And all information with regards to this application was posted on the village's website. Some of it didn't come in until late. When we have an application like this and we're moving and we have nothing else on the agenda and planning board members and their consultant can spend time on things to make sure we get it done before the meeting. We're not so hard and fast with our rules with regards to making sure everything's in within 2 weeks before the meeting or a week and 10 days before the meeting. So we accepted information for this right up till today, especially from our own consultants.
I very much appreciate that as the homeowner, so thank you, everybody.
Well, why not? If we can, we'll do it. If we can't, if it's complicated or we need more time, we'll be open and honest and transparent with everyone. There's no need to be obnoxious about this whole thing. If we can do it, we'll do it. Okay, anybody else have any questions? We're good? Okay. And now for something completely different. We, because things were coming in towards the end of the period of time, we had a draft resolution that then changed because we got the engineer's report. So we have we did not circulate a resolution to the planning board members or to the applicant. So our attorney or our planner, somebody has this application on their screen, they're going to share the screen with us. And
Yes, I can share that.
if it's possible that we can kind of review it as a group, and it's very not controversial, it's very straightforward. I think the only question was what was the section, block, and lot number, because there were two different numbering schemes used in the application. I think we always use the village tax maps, which is a pretty straightforward section number, block number, lot number. But then there were also some other numbers that were being used in this application.
Yeah, there's a village block and lot, and there's a town of Mamaroneck block and lot. So it's possible sometimes the applicants use one and.
Okay. All right. That was the only question that really came up when we were reviewing the draft. So do you want to share your screen? And
Yeah.
Teresa, if you want to walk us through this, since you're
Sure.
the author. So Amber will put it,
I'm just gonna pull up the resolution. Does everybody see that?
yeah, maybe make it a little bit bigger.
Well, that's really clear. That's excellent.
There we go. Thank you.
So you can see what I did there. I put the village number and the section, block, and lot number, so it's crystal clear. So both numbers are there. What I tried to do in accordance with resolutions that the village planning board has used before is sort of go through the history of the project, which is when the application came in, who's applying, what are they applying for? And that takes you through the first paragraph down to the second paragraph is just a description of, it's a renovation to existing residential structure, the size of the lot, the zoning of the lot, and a description of the work, as well as a list of all the plans, both the original dates and the dates last revised. So we have a clear record of what we're looking at. And you'll see that there's the stormwater plans by Hudson Engineering and Consulting PC and the William G. Winters Architects plans are all listed right there, both the reports and the plans. Next paragraph. This paragraph just says what the Village of Marinek's building inspector's determination was in terms of what approvals were required. And we know that the Village Board of Architectural Review was granted on December 1st, 2020. So Amber can just put that date in. Then we have sort of a standard phrase here, which is that the planning board members are familiar with the property and the project, and that you've carefully reviewed and considered the application and the advice provided by your consultants. And then I list in the next paragraph the reports and advice of the consultants. And you know, we had 2 letters from Susan and 2 memos from Esteban. And the only outstanding issue with respect to the landscaping from Susan was they just
Susan,
wanted
Amber,
the,
can you scroll down then?
Yes,
Yeah, yeah.
they wanted the protection of the existing landscaping detail, which we added as a condition.
I realize that it's been added to the new plan that was sent today, the revised plan.
Great.
Okay, well, it doesn't hurt to have it as a condition if it was just in case, but we could take that off when we get down there. Let's see, and then I managed to get in the thing about Esteban's latest sign off. We're confirming it's a type 2 action, and the conditions, which the first condition we can leave on or take off, doesn't really matter. The next one has to do with wanting to have a final set of plans so they can be endorsed by the planning board chair, and who gets what copies of those. And then we also put in that we need to have a construction, maintenance, and inspection declaration for the stormwater management facilities. That just makes sure that they continue to be maintained. And it's recorded because they may sell the property someday, and then we want people to take with notice of the existence of those practices. Next page. And this asbestos survey is a requirement prior to undertaking the demolition of a residential structure. It always is good to mention that. That the application fees and review fees be paid prior to the issuance of the building permit, and that they require any other permits that are necessary. They've certainly gotten the only other permit, discretionary permit that's required by the village, which is the architectural review. And then I added this in about keeping the landscaping in a healthy and vigorous state. That seems to be a condition that you guys typically use. And last but not least, Esteban's stormwater as-built survey submitted prior to the certificate of occupancy. So there's nothing very controversial in there, I don't think.
Okay. First, we normally circulate the resolutions to the applicant's attorney if there is one. I think the applicant isn't using an attorney for this application.
No.
Correct. So I will give you first shot if you have any issues with anything that you heard or saw, or would you prefer us to hold this over for 2 weeks so you have a chance to read it?
No, I think it looks fine to me. I guess the only question I had on the asbestos survey, I mean, if we're kind of going kind of down to the studs, is that still, that's just a standard asbestos survey standard forever? Okay.
Yeah, it is. Yep, given the age of the house, if it was built, say, after 2000, much less of an issue.
Okay.
What year was the house built?
58.
Yeah, anything before 1978 could have lead or asbestos.
Okay, any members of the planning board have any question or issue with this process?
I would move to approve.
All right, somebody in the chat room, I think it's your neighbor. Sir, if you wish to speak, this isn't a public hearing, but if there's something that you would wish to say, if you could raise your hand. I don't know, Amber.
I just promoted to panelist.
Okay.
Yeah.
This is the
You can
person.
also use the chat feature to communicate with us so that we can help you out if you're having trouble with anything.
Okay.
I think you might need to unmute.
Right. You want to pull the resolution down so we can see people?
Yes.
Hello?
Hello, is there something you'd like to say? You're muted right now. And please identify yourself because you're just listed as a Zoom user. No.
Otherwise, you can just type your question in the
Oh,
chat box.
sorry. So I just got a message from the chat 1 minute ago. It says, my name is Stuart Gilbert, 1050 Nautilus Lane. Who is that?
Stuart, if you have a question, you can type it in the chat box.
He's still muted, it looks like.
Okay, it's just the person, I think, identifying themselves. We asked who the person was. Okay,
Okay.
all right. So we have a motion on the table then to approve the resolution. Anybody want to second that?
Second.
Any discussion or comments? No? Okay, we'll take a vote. Richard,
Yes.
Ellen,
Yes.
John,
Yes.
Cindy,
Yes.
and I vote yes. Easy peasy, you're done.
Thank you.
Done with us. Right.
Great.
Okay.
Thank you very much. Have a great evening, everyone.
Thank you very much.
Bye.
Good luck,
Thanks.
Michael.
Okay, all right. And that
All
brings
right.
us to the end of our agenda, unless anybody has anything else they want to bring up. We did the minutes and we did this, a very short agenda. No? Okay. Adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, all in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Good night, everybody. Be safe.
Thanks, Kathy.
Good night.
Take care.
Good night.
Night.
Thank
Bye-bye.
you.